It's like he's playing a game with you. He's trying to find out what you have by the questions you ask. If he's her guardian, and I believe he was, he's not doing a whole lot to help her this time. So that's why I believe that was the last day.
Is it a bite? Is it a human bite? Also, it was an aggressive type bite mark because it was a single penetration.
Enter the world of forensic science, the science of crime, where a suspect's guilt or innocence can hang on a single piece of evidence. One of his dozens of love letters went like this: "Never stop believing in yourself as I believe in you. No matter what happens, Natalia, I will always be there for you. My love for you is unconditional." Where does love end and obsession begin? Exhibit A, a bite mark on a body. Natalia Mazurski was 21 when she arrived from Russia on Valentine's Day, 1992. Her family was heartbroken to see her go, but knew that life would be better for their daughter in Canada, the promised land. She came to marry Ivan Kravchuk, a Russian boy who had immigrated before her. But the marriage broke up after a few short months, and Ivan moved out west, later filing for divorce. Natalia, now all alone in a new country, decided to enroll at university in interior design. At home, she'd been a talented painter. In her first 2 years in Canada, she had several exhibitions of her work. By this time, she had met Alex Plotkin, another Russian who had grown up in Canada. They eventually started living together. Natalia felt they were meant for each other. But it was a stormy relationship, and she asked Alex to move out. Around that time, Gilbert Ho, a friend of a friend, helped her get a job at a trendy downtown restaurant. That's where she met Glenn Rollins. Glenn had money and was a regular at the restaurant. Less than a month after he had known her, they became engaged. But after a drunken confrontation one night, it all ended. But Natalia wasn't the kind of woman you could easily forget. They all stayed in touch with her. It was on a Monday morning in January when Natalia's phone started to ring. It rang on and off all day and night, but no one answered it. No one.
Hey, Princess, it's me. Good morning. I took care of all that divorce stuff with Ivan for you, so not to worry.
Hey, Natalia, I'm just picking up a pizza and bringing it over.
Hey, it's me. Just getting off work. I was gonna come over.
Where are you? It's Ivan. I've been calling you. Give me a call.
It continued to ring over the next 2 days and nights.
Hey, where were you? Natalia, this is Ivan.
Hey, Nat, it's Annie. Didn't see you at school today. People have been looking for you.
Hope you got the rent money together. Otherwise, you're going to get evicted. Bye, Princess. Talk to you later.
Just give me a call so I know you're okay.
By Thursday, her friend Gilbert Ho, the bartender from the restaurant, was worried enough to get the superintendent to check on her apartment. Something horrible had happened. Natalia is dead. Gilbert calls police. Homicide is brought in.
It was a very cold day. The door was open to the balcony, and I thought perhaps it was for the dog. You don't leave your balcony door open in January. The first thing that I remember when I walked in the apartment was a small bathroom to my left, and I could see a body in the bathtub. The bedroom door was opened. That tells you where it happened.
The body is a crime scene unto itself. It tells its own story.
The striking injuries in this case were those to the head area, and the face, for example, showed multiple lacerations. Lacerations are tears of the skin. The red marks here are indicating the sites of lacerations. This is tearing of the skin from, as you can see here, the forehead, as well as both the right and left sides of the scalp. So one can say that we're dealing with a blunt object, and we're dealing with a very large number, greater than 20 blows or impacts to the head.
An injury like this suggests the possibility of a hammer or hammer-like object, which is what they found when the tub was drained. The number of blows to the head and face indicates a great deal of anger towards the victim. Then the pathologist noticed something that was going to prove invaluable for investigators.
There was an abrasion, which is a scraping of the skin around the left nipple, and it was the configuration, the shape of this abrasion, which was semicircular, which suggested to myself that this may well have been a bite mark.
The use of teeth and bite marks for forensic identification purposes goes back over 100 years.
The first question, or the first fork in the road, is it a bite? And then the second fork in the road is it a human bite? And then the third fork in the road is, which human? Well, in this case, it was there were two markings, one above the nipple and one below the nipple on the deceased, and the markings were consistent with a human bite. And furthermore, they were consistent with a bite mark, in my opinion, that was of a sexual nature, being as it was on the breast, and also it was an aggressive type bite mark because it was a single penetration, fleeting sexual bite where there was grasping, enough pressure to break the skin, yet there was no central bruising that one would see, say, for example, with a hickey or an affectionate bite mark.
Dr. Wood also determines that the bite mark was made at the same time as the head wounds. It suggests that whoever bit Natalia Mazurski had also murdered her. The blows to the head, the vicious bite mark, the drowning. Someone's hatred had exploded at this beautiful young woman. Would Exhibit A, this human bite mark, be enough to catch a brutal killer? In the week following Natalia's murder, Detective Mike Hamill returns repeatedly to her apartment. He needs to take it all in at his own pace, piece by piece, clue by clue.
You have to spend a lot of time there. You have to look around. You have to sit there and look and try to put pieces together in your own mind. I'm trying to figure out what happened. There's no signs of forcible entry, so obviously she invited them in. There was no blood from the bed on the floor to the bathroom. And normally when the body's moved right after the murder or after being assaulted, there's blood involved, you'll see drag marks in this. It happens very quickly.
In order to interpret the scene, investigators call in blood expert Susan Kern. The blood spatter adds to the chilling story of the murder.
They called me here to assist them to understand if the beating actually occurred in the bedroom and that she was later transported to the bathroom, and how to best photograph these stains to preserve the information at the scene. It all appears to originate from somewhere on the bed, traveling, as you can see by the arrows, outwards from this location. If a hammer, in this case, has been used to deliver repeated blows to a surface that is continuing to produce liquid blood from it, such as a head, during the swinging of the weapon, the liquid blood will come away from the surface of the hammer itself, and those droplets will impact on whatever surface is around, such as the ceiling. And in my mind, the only way to get from one room to the other room without leaving a lot of blood is that she had been wrapped up in say, a blanket or a sleeping bag or something of that nature to prevent the blood from dripping onto the floor.
One of the biggest puzzles in the bedroom was a ring of blood on the dresser. She had one dresser in her bedroom, and it's like someone had taken a cup, placed it on the bed, on the blood, while it was still fresh, and then placed the cup on the dresser. And then in the bathroom, we found a cup, which appeared to be the same size as of the ring on the dresser.
Hamill felt the fact that the killer moved around from room to room with this cup meant that he was at ease in Natalia's apartment.
I was satisfied that the person who killed her was very close to her.
From Natalia's birth control pills and an interview with Natalia's neighbor who remembered hearing a loud bang on his adjacent bedroom wall, the time of death is established as late Sunday or early Monday morning. Hamill began to investigate his suspects, keeping in mind that one of them had viciously bitten Natalia. The first person Detective Hamill brought into interview on videotape was Gilbert Ho, because he was the first person to discover the body.
He came across as someone that she needed because she was going through some difficult times in her life. And he came across as her crying shoulder whenever she needed someone. He was the guy. He left several messages on her answering machine. Those messages were left after she was dead.
Gilbert had helped her with a school project that Sunday night, the last time he saw her alive. He said that her ex-husband Ivan phoned from out west that night to discuss their divorce. Gilbert offered to help her with the details. Ivan's voice was also identified on her answering machine several days after they believed she was murdered. Gilbert, who claimed to also be Natalia's sometime lover, said Natalia later got a call from some guy she said she was going out to meet. That's why Gilbert left her at 11:30 on Sunday night. Had the mysterious caller been her murderer? The cops asked Gilbert if he knew anything else about the other men in Natalia's life. Gilbert told them about her boyfriend, Alex. A shirt of his was found on her bedroom floor soaked in blood. Alex's voice was also identified on her answering machine. Gilbert told detectives that he had more than once had to console Natalia in the restaurant after a row with Alex. Alex admitted having sex with her on the Friday and Saturday before her murder.
When I first met her boyfriend, he was very, very emotionally upset. A nice, easygoing guy, very pleasant. I can see why she would like him.
The final suspect was a doozy, Glenn Rollins, her ex-fiancé from the restaurant. Glenn was very possessive of Natalia, and one night shortly after they were engaged, he barged into her apartment building drunk. He claimed Natalia was playing him for a sucker and demanded his engagement ring back. When she wouldn't open the door, he became enraged. This was just 1 month before Natalia's murder.
course, he became a suspect because of that. I mean, you just don't come over and break down the door with a sledgehammer.
Glenn was charged with assault. When she was later found murdered, the media was all over him. Their theory was that he was a spurned lover with a streak of violence. These were the 4 suspects. Mike Hamill would need to make bite mark impressions from all of them. While Hamill was still investigating, Natalia's family came over from Russia to attend her funeral.
You could tell it when you met the family. I mean, our cultures are way off. They're very different. And you could sense the feeling from these people. They just couldn't understand, how could this happen?
In addition to Natalia's family, 3 of the suspects were also there: Ivan, Alex, and Gilbert. Mike Hamill was there too, as a mourner and an investigator.
In these types of cases, or any other homicide cases, you're going to end up with a number of suspects. The faster you eliminate them, the more time you'll have to spend on your real suspect.
Ivan Kravchuk, Natalia's ex-husband, still lived out west, and it didn't appear that he could have flown in and committed the murder.
He had a perfect alibi, so he was out of the picture as a suspect.
As for Alex Plotkin, on the night of the murder, his roommate swore he'd been sleeping on the couch and was still there when she returned from work late that night.
But he had his own place, and we had an alibi for him as well.
Then there was Gilbert Ho. He came over to Detective Hamill and thanked him for coming. This was tough for Hamill because he had begun to suspect Gilbert.
Of course, we suspected that he was the murderer, and sometimes it's difficult to be there and play a role, play the dummy. Yeah, of course you have to.
Hamill had suspicions from his very first interview with Mr. Ho.
He was drained out of his emotions, and there should have been something more. He was claiming to be a very good friend, and very good friends don't react the way he did.
Investigators also learned that even though Gilbert had a wife and 2 young children, he had paid for all of Natalia's furniture and her rent. People from the restaurant where they worked said that Gilbert was in love with Natalia.
When we spoke to Gilbert Ho, we asked him if he loved her, and yes, he loved her. We asked him if he had sex with her. He said he did. I don't believe he did, ever. I asked him, did you bite her? And the next question, if he's willing to say, well, I didn't bite her, but I may have sucked on her, I sucked on her breast. Okay, well, the next question is, would you have hurt her? No, I would never hurt her.
Gilbert was willing to give Detective Hamill his bite mark impression right away. So was Alex. But what about Glenn Rollins, Natalia's ex-fiancé who had assaulted her? He had an alibi for the night of the murder too. That he'd gone to see Get Shorty with a friend. Glenn Rollins agreed to give Hamill his bite mark impression in exchange for dropping the assault charges. It would all come down to the bite mark impressions.
Here you have the 3 suspects' models. The question has to be looked at from 2 ways. Is it this person? And that's important to the police. And can I exclude this person? And if I can exclude the person, certainly that's very important to the police, for the police to know as well. This is the tape that was shown to the jury that was made from the computer. And what we have here, we have suspect 3's teeth, which we are superimposing on the bite mark over the breast. These teeth are obviously not a match. They're far too wide. They're at an odd angulation for this to be a possible match, both in the upper and in the lower arch. So we're moving on now to the second suspect. But again, they're too large. The arch is too large, and where there are teeth that should be leaving marks, there are no marks. And now we have Mr. Ho's dentition and the corrected teeth here, and they fit quite nicely. He's got a smaller arch, and the teeth can be seen to be in the proper position for making the blackened bruises that appear both above and below the nipple. the outlines of the teeth, but very nicely with the bruises. You'll see them disappear and the bruises appear right beneath where the markings are. So I concluded that this was a match. I believe, and I'm not certain, that Mr. Ho denied making a bite mark on the breast, and now we have somehow miraculously his dentition's print on this woman's breast.
This is the story that Detective Hamill and his team were able to piece together. It turned out that Gilbert was broke. The checks he had written for Natalia's rent had bounced, and she was going to be evicted the very next day. And she didn't even know it. So when Gilbert went over to Natalia's that Sunday night, he knew this might be his last night with his princess, and that the relationship was about to change.
Here's this poor girl. She's about to be evicted. She has no clue this is about to happen. And her guardian, if he's her guardian, and I believe he was, he's not doing a whole lot to help her this time. So that's why I believe that that was her last day.
Hamill believed Gilbert wanted sex. After everything he had done for Natalia, it was the least she could do for him. When she refused, he exploded in outrage. He bludgeoned her, then he bit her, then he thought about what to do next. He wrapped her head in a towel and carried her to the tub to try to cover it up.
It's the only mistake he made, was he bit her. Because without that, we could not put Mr. Ho at the scene at the time of her death.
Gilbert Ho was convicted of first-degree murder and sentenced to 25 years in prison.
He was obsessed with her. If he could not have her, no one else could.
No matter what happens, I will always be there for you. My love for you is unconditional. Maybe Natalia, anxious to fit into her newly adopted country, ignored the signs of Gilbert Ho's obsession. Maybe she didn't have the heart to tell him to leave her alone. The tragedy is no one else did either. Natalia Mazurski was buried almost 3 years to the day she arrived in this country on Valentine's Day. She will always remain a beautiful Russian princess. The stories on Exhibit A are based on actual cases. The names of the victims have been changed to protect their identities. The names of the guilty are real.